So how do we decide who is in charge and who is not in charge? And shouldn't whoever's been in charge be able to protect the people that are underneath it? That's the fundamental question that the French Revolution was trying to answer. Who do we appoint as in charge, and why are they in charge, and why do they get to be in charge versus other people? The French Revolution was brought on by the idea that France, even though it was a super wealthy country, was also, and super wealthy and super big country, was also currently in this state of dismay. The 98% of the population is in the lower class, and the power was being held by the monarch, King Louis XVI, and these self-appointed nobles, because King Louis believed in divine right, and he appointed nobles that he believed were preferred by God. Around the time of the French Revolution, France was going through an idealist change where instead of basing a lot of their ideas on religion, it became more about freedom and like liberty and self-independence. This was due to the philosophers and the artists that were becoming more and more popular, and they were proclaiming these ideas. It was also due to the creation of the printing press, which made political views a lot more easy and more accessible for the people. So at that time in France, there were three social classes. There was the top, the monarch himself, the nobles that he had appointed, and then the lower class. And at that time, it was pretty simple, but France was going through this period of really like broke, poor, because of the U.S. Revolution. France had been a super big supporter of the U.S. Revolution, and in the end, it left them bankrupt. And that, plus their fighting with England, ended up making them super poor. And so there was more taxing of the lower class, and then the lower class couldn't afford anything. So they were broke, and there was a lot of bad times. So the King Louis, appointed this advisor, this accountant, basically, to go over the legals and the financials and everything and try to fix their solution, find a better solution for the problem. And this accountant was like super popular because he went to the lower class and he showed them exactly what the financial records were for France, and so they were super fond of him. They loved him. But King Louis's advisors were like, no, like this isn't a good idea. We should get him out of the way because we don't need the lower class knowing about what our financials are like and like revolting for more power or whatever. And then about that time, the lower class was like super pissed off that King Louis wasn't doing what they wanted. And so they decided to go overtake this prison, Bastillon, and like destroyed it in uproar and whatever. And then the king was forced in to call, or no, before they took over the prison, the king called in this meeting of three representatives from all three upper class, or from all three classes. And even though the representative from the lower class represented 98% of the population, his vote was equal to that of the other two representatives. Well, that's fine. The other two representatives still had majority vote, and since they both came from the upper class, they obviously voted to keep their privileges. This upset the lower class, caused them to attack the prison, destroyed it, and then, things get a little wonky, it's a little stressful, the upper class is mad. The lower class decides that it wants to break apart from them and do its own thing. They decide to set up their own constitution, and they're going to be this new group, and they're going to try to overthrow the monarch. And so that's happening, and the nobles are all like trying to flee because now their power is gone, and so now they're in danger. The king stays because he's like the focal point for the monarchy idea, so he's still there, but he tries to escape in 1781, 82, somewhere around there. He tries to escape and like flee the country, and he gets caught, and he's tried, and he's, accused of treason. He's tried for treason, and they find him guilty, and so he's executed. 9 months later, Marie Antoinette, she's become this really like evil woman. She's been vilified because she's part of the noble class. And so she's been accused of being like frivolous and spending sorts of money that she doesn't need. And so she's executed as well. And there's a lot of happening, and they're all revolting, and by now the people of like, there's a lot of them that are like okay with just revolting against the government, but there's a huge majority that's like, if we're going to change shit, we're going to change everything. So they're trying to change the religion, they're trying to change like street names, they're trying to change the calendar. And then there's this group of like extremists who went around like killing a bunch of people for like stepping out of line or whatever, and they killed like 200,000 people or something like that before their leader was kind of like cut off. Like, no, it's bad. And then there was a lot happening. At the end of the video, he was talking about how in the span of 10 years, the France Revolution saw 3 constitutions and 5 different governments. And after that was kind of finished, that was the end of the French Revolution. Napoleon was a part of that, and he declared himself emperor because he was going to protect their democratic rights or whatever. That's what he announced. But it left France in like decades of going back and forth between monarchy and revolt, just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, before they finally like settled on a government, and that was in 1871. This was a long time of just fighting and fighting and fighting for who was in charge and who gets to be the ruler and whatever. And that's really one of the main concepts that we still talk about today. Talk about like who gets to be in charge and why do you get to be in charge and who has the power here and da 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 da. A lot of that is still around today.